Good morning, everyone. I hope you had fun at the party yesterday and that you're energized and ready for the rest of our conference. For his keynote speech, I would very much like to invite Boris Palmer, Mayor of Tübingen, Germany, to take the floor. Boris?
So, good morning, everybody. Sorry about the delay. We had a few technical problems, so I'm still a bit nervous, but I think now the presentation is going to work, and we're switching from green to blue. Yes, okay, so you can see that. So, building Tübingen into a smart and sustainable city. That's the title of the presentation, and I have worked as a mayor of Tübingen for 9 years in that small town. I've just been re-elected with 62% of the popular vote. And thanks. And our European President Reinhard asked me to tell you a little bit about the results of 9 years in office. And that's what I'm going to try now. So how does this work? Okay. I'm fixed to this position, am I? Right, because I can't really see what's going up there, try it here. Now, a few words about Tübingen. It's in the southwest of Germany, close to Porsche and Mercedes factories, if you know about that. It's 40 minutes from Stuttgart, 85,000 inhabitants, the home of 7 Nobel Prize winners. Our university has been founded in 1477, and we have about 30,000 students. That's, of course, a good environment for green voters, because the more doctors you have in your town, normally the more green votes you have, and Tübingen boasts itself to be the city in Germany with the most doctors per capita. So for that reason, we have a good environment. Just a few views. On the right side, yeah, that's right for you as well. The right side, you see the Tübingen Town Hall. That's where my office is. And now this is a different part of the city. In the center, the picture in the center shows an area that used to be military, and we have transformed within 2 decades into a new part of the city, an urban part of the city. And I will refer to that later on. So, to be successful is, think about Bill Clinton looking at the economy as well as the environment. It's the economy is stupid, was his election campaign. Now we have a growing economy in Tübingen. The number of jobs has increased by 12%, the number of inhabitants by 8% within the last 7 or 8 years. However, of course, we have limits to growth. We have a medieval center that can't be really extended. We are located between hills. We have a lot of wonderful nature surrounding Tübingen. And therefore, we have decided to do without greenfield development. So it's only brownfield development that hosts this growth. And that's what I think is sustainable growth as far as the development of the city and its borders is concerned. So how do we achieve these? We have a lot of goals combined, and that is the renewal and the improvement of underdevelopment parts of the city. That's something you can't achieve if you go into greenfield. It's only brownfield. We try to have interesting neighborhoods instead of monofunctional residential areas, and we have zero sprawl. So this is what it looks before. You've seen that picture. You see the large areas within the buildings. That was where the troops had their exercise, and that's what it looks now. So we have combined new buildings in the exercise places, and we have retrofitted the old buildings, and therefore we have a new urban part of the city. We have done that with many areas. So this is another one. That's what it looks like now. And you see and the old and the new parts combined. And if you go into the streets, this is an industrial area. That's what it looks like now. If you go into the streets, you will see interesting neighborhoods, urban spaces. We have planned more developments like that. This is under construction at the moment. It's very close to the city. It used to be the freight rail station. And that's what these areas look if they are finished. So you see, of course, a lot of bicycles and only one car. And that's about the proportions in the reality as well. And what you see is different architectures. So we have only small land pieces that we sell to people who combine their efforts, their money. They find an architect and build a small, comparatively small building, and therefore you have mixed architectures, and you have mixed use, and you have interesting urban areas. So here you see what that looks like. In the ground floor you have stories, you have little companies, and therefore the urban area is interesting. If you walk along the street, you won't look at closed windows, but you will see people working there. This is another view. I'll go through that a little bit faster. You see people on the streets. Very important about that is that we have car parks at the edge of the developments, and that we keep the cars outside, so public spaces are interesting for people to play there. I'll go ahead a little bit. Now, of course, you need a good energy system. Therefore, we built district heating systems, and it's compulsory to connect to that. That's the only way to have economically feasible district heating system if everybody is connected to it. This is a new area that has just been developed, and 95% of the energy comes from the waste management system, because we get gas there, we burn that in combined cycle, and therefore we produce electricity and the heat goes to the new urban area. So what we achieve with that kind of development is growth of the economy, growth in the number of flats. On the other side, there is no use of land. There is interesting urban areas, and we also reduce carbon dioxide emissions per capita, because you have less cars, you have less car use, you have more public transport, you have more bicycle riding, and you have less use of energy in the construction of the buildings. We reuse old buildings as far as they are usable. We retrofit instead of tearing everything down and building it new. And of course, if many people live in the same area, so it's high density, you have less energy involved in the construction of the buildings and of the paving of the areas where they are built. So we're trying to respect the limits of growth while growing, and therefore we have created a campaign to raise public awareness. And this campaign shows me in a small Mercedes car that used to be the mayor's car. I have sold that now. I'm only relying on bicycles. And we have created the campaign. That's what you see, the sign. Tübingen goes blue, and that's why I have these blue suits. That's part of the campaign. So the mayor rides the bicycle in a blue suit, and everybody sees, oh, there's something going on here. Something is new about that. And of course, the car, if you see that, the car wants to explain that it can be really relaxing to protect the climate and to save energy if you use a smaller car than mayors normally do. So we have a target of carbon dioxide emission reduction of 40% within 50 years. We have reached 20% so far within the last 6 years. So we're really good on track. So how do you do that? Of course, retrofitting of buildings. You see where the energy goes through the windows and the walls. and where you have to protect through insulations. This is the medieval town hall. I'm really happy to move in 4 weeks because it has been under reconstruction for the last 4 years, and the target is 55% carbon dioxide emissions, whilst the building will look more medieval than it ever did when we have finished the retrofitting. I can prove that, Reinhard, if you visit Tübingen again, because we will undo some stupid things from the 60s of last century. So, of course, new technologies are involved. For example, this is a system that you put into the wastewater system, and then you take the energy out from the water, and you use that energy to heat buildings. So we have really done a big retrofitting program for most of the city's buildings, and this is some of the results. The heat consumption has been decreased by 25% over all the buildings. And we're trying to raise public awareness. We're trying to give incentives. We're trying to get people to do the same thing. For example, this is the ice bucket challenge. You see the blue is everywhere. And so we had that in the center of town, and we asked people to tell us, after 2 weeks in the sun, what percentage of the ice will be there, what percentage will be melt. And it was like, what do you think, 2 weeks? Which percentage will stay? Was 1,000 liters of water? Which percentage will stay? 2 weeks in the sun, only insulated by that wooden construction. Any idea? That's pretty good, yeah. Something like that. So 30% was gone, 70% stayed. And when we opened that, more than 300 people showed up because they wanted to know whether they have won. So that is something, how to raise awareness. And as far as electricity is concerned, we have our local power utility. So it's totally owned by the city. And we have a 50% green electricity target. Actually, we are ahead of plan. We will reach that target by the year 2017. So 50% of the electricity that is needed in the city, and that includes companies, will be produced from wind, water, and solar by our local power utility. That is interesting on schools because people see that, but of course we're also in the countryside. That's what many buildings look like now, so facades and roofs with PV power systems. And we have seen an increase with that program of the PV power installed in city by 10, so tenfold increase within 6 or 7 years. We have also built new hydroelectric power stations and retrofitted some of them. And again, we try to involve citizens, the same with heating as with electricity. This is an interesting event because I see I was pretty young at that time, so it was my first year in office. And what we did is that we had an information to every citizen. If you turn up and bring your old-fashioned light bulb, you get an energy-saving light bulb for free. So it was really interesting because more than 700 people showed up to get a light bulb from the mayor. And if you think about that, how much effort you have to involve, to travel to the city center and to bring your single light bulb, just for get one free, you see what people really interests, because it's much easier and it saves much more money if you change all your light bulbs at once from a supermarket. But it's so interesting to get it for free from the mayor that you raise awareness. Another example of smart technology, how to use electricity efficient. So this is a small piece of equipment that's virtually in every household. And we have, as the first power utility in Germany, we have put in place a program that you don't have to pay for the new equipment, but by the savings that the equipment produces. So within 4 years, that's a turn-back period, you get the money back. The only thing you have to do is to write a postcard to your power utility. We'll finance it, we'll do all the business, and after 4 years, you will keep the savings of that new piece of equipment in your household. So power consumption has been reduced in Tübingen as well, and that's not only the city's facilities, but that's Tübingen as a whole. You see a reduction of power consumption per capita by 10%. And this is something that is part of the Energiewende. I think that is already an English term. We have, as a first power utility in the state, we have built such a huge electric boiler that can use wind energy when it can't be used because there's too much wind energy. We have these situations already in Germany that can use wind energy in a very short period of time, within 90 seconds, to go to the heating system. So this is kind of a storage system, and the payback period of that investment is something like 2 or 3 years, so it's also economically very feasible. We have invested a lot of money in cogeneration. So these are power plants in the city. We have a lot of them all around the city. This is the district heating system. Every color is a district heating part, so half of the city virtually is in the district heating system. I know that in Scandinavia, especially in Denmark, that isn't really impressive, but for German standards, it's a very big system. And then we have, of course, public transportation. Here you see the city center and the number of buses running there. Public transportation has seen an increase in the number of kilometers, the number of buses, and of course in the number of passengers, an increase of about 20% within 5 years. You see the columns. We try to give incentives to use cars, but only shared cars, because that's much more economically and environmentally feasible. And what you see, the picture, is the space where there is this blue sign, and that used to be the car park of the mayor. So since I don't have a mayor's car anymore, I decided to share that space in the city center with people, and now we have 2 car-sharing cars there, and everybody can use them. So instead of 1 parking mayor's car, we have 100 people that can share this very rare space with cars. And again, we have a measurable success. You see the numbers. We have seen 180% increase in the use of car sharing. We try to make cycling popular. So the investment, that's the columns here, the investment in bicycle lanes has been increased by 10. We started with 50,000 euros a year, and now we invest €500,000 per year, and that is to be continued. Council has agreed to that already. And that is what's the change in the streets. So before, you see that on the left-hand side, there is a very small bicycle lane and a lot of space for cars. And it's the same perspective on the right side. And we have increased the pedestrian and the cycling space from 2 meters to 5.5 meters, and we have reduced the space for cars. We promote safer cycling, so again, it's doing something and making people aware of it. And this is the even bluer suit I wore in the first period of office, but so many people told me it's ugly that I switched to this one. It's not that ugly, but still attracting some attention, and little bit ugly. That's enough. It's about raising awareness, Reinhard. Third period, that's 7 years ahead. Okay, so raising awareness and also giving incentives. In this case, there's a €100 grant if you buy an electrically assisted bicycle. We have an internal mobility management. So there are a lot of activities that are supported. And again, we have results here. What you see is how many people use bicycles, buses, trains, and cars, and how many are walking, and the local traffic, that's the left column, shows 1/4 for each. And in Germany, that is the best result I know. So 3 out of 4 ways in the city are done without a car. And that is a very good result. It's even better than Berlin. So if you add that up, I've shown you the figures of the economic growth in the beginning. Now you see the carbon dioxide success, minus 18% per capita. This year we have recalculated for 2014, and now we're up to minus 20%. So it's half the way for the target. We're well on track, and we have combined zero use of land, zero use of space and nature outside of the city's borders with a very good economic perspective, good economic growth, more than double of the state's average, and we are, as far as I know, best in saving carbon dioxide emissions. I think that's a very good way of growing. Of course, it's a growth path. It's not a path of doing without things. It's a growing way. You see the numbers here. It's also good for the budget because a growing economy produces growing tax revenues. You see local tax revenues has increased by 200%, and of course that makes it easier to invest in all the things I've already told you, to retrofit buildings, to build new bike lanes, or to build new cogeneration systems. Well, that's what I think is an interesting result after 9 years in office, and I think I'm at the last slide. Yes, that's right. And again, it's about doing things, it's about doing something, but it's also about people, and therefore we always try to involve people, and these are people that have agreed to show us how they are part of our campaign to protect the climate. Children with the energy-saving light bulb, and on the left-hand side you see the former Minister of Justice, Federal Minister of Justice, who lives in Tübingen, and she has decided to show us a very important equipment that you have to use in your office, and that is just a switch to turn off the electricity as soon as you leave your office. That's an intelligent way, and it's also easy and comfortable, and therefore many people can join in. So I hope I'm on time, and thanks very much for the presentation. During the presentation I realized it was another one than the one I expected, but still it was better than no presentation, so thanks again for the technical assistance, and thanks very much for listening.